Hello and welcome to Stop Emailing Documents. Today we're going to cover the basics of document collaboration and version control in Microsoft Office 365. My name is Nathan Austin, and I will be presenting today, and Stephanie Kingsley is producing, and she'll be behind the scenes helping demonstrate some of the multi-user editing capabilities as we go through this session today. So I would like to encourage, so first of all, thank you all for joining. I know that this has become more important in recent weeks, and that's why we're going through these sessions, is try to help people use these tools better. We have a lot of organizations that are using them. They've got tools available to them that they're paying for, and they're not leveraging them as well as they could be. So thanks for joining this session. I would like to point out the Q&A panel on the side. We are going to be very prescriptive in the 30 minutes that we have allocated for this session, and then at the end we're going to stick around and answer any questions relative to the session at the end. So, but if you see a question in the meantime, please go ahead and enter the session, the question, and Stephanie might be able to answer it offline, or it'll be something that we add at the end, and we'll actually go through a little bit deeper the details of of document collaboration and version control. All right. With that said, here we go. As I mentioned, the purpose of this session, we're going to be really prescriptive. We actually, this session is really to be a basic overview of some of the key steps and key things you'll need to think about if you're going to start document collaborating inside of Microsoft Office 365. The sessions that we have scheduled next week, on Tuesday next week is a more advanced session, and then on Thursday next week is actually more of a personal things you can configure for yourself to optimize the way Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive all work together. So these three sessions, today and next Tuesday and Thursday, are all designed to really work together to cover the different facets of this. So this is going to be a very prescriptive how-to on the basics. We're going to do a quick review or an overview of some of the kind of key steps around the document collaboration and version control capabilities. Then we're going to demonstrate, so I'm going to kind of lay out the 4 steps, the 4 key components. We'll demonstrate and walk through all those different variables so you can understand the different capabilities. We'll summarize that and give you some recommended action items as far as taking advantage of the items in this session. Okay, so that's what we're going to be about. Again, please go ahead and start putting the Q&A in there if anything pops up and throughout the session, and we'll get to that at the end. All right, real quick, we'll have 1 minute on my tech. We are not a training organization. We are not here to just because we're so excited about SharePoint and Teams. What we love is that we serve the small and medium business community is really what we do. Over the 20 years of us being in business, we've defined a pretty good proven IT strategy that we know by working together in collaboration with our clients can achieve proven, consistent, reliable results. So while we can't solve all the problems that we face as businesses, because there's plenty of challenges outside of IT, our goal by working with you is to at least remove the IT challenges from your plate as much as possible. And as a team, we coach our team to try and make IT easy for you. We don't always achieve that objective, but that is what our goal is, and that's what we try and have our team think about, is to make IT easy for you. And by doing that and working together, we've seen how our clients can achieve 4 times more value and productivity out of their IT investments. That's a little bit about us, but enough said, we are on to the session. So let's review some of the basic kind of key components. If you're going to start doing document collaboration and version control in Office 365, there's four main things you really need to do. There's a 5th item on here that you'll see, but it's not really related to, it's more of a public service announcement than the part of the collaboration. So first of all, starting on the left side of your screen, start here. We have to first, in order to start collaborating, we have to first share the documents internally. And primarily I'm going to focus on internal document collaboration. There's some simple steps to be able to do it externally, but I'm going to mainly focus on internal document sharing today. If in the Q&A you want to dig into some external, I'll be happy to cover that and we'll go deeper on that. Then there's some key ways for you to be aware of as far as when you want to collaborate with someone. There's multiple ways in which you can open up and start collaborating on the same document. So we're going to cover those. Then once you're actually in the document, we recommend prescribing, if you're collaborating with someone, what is the method that you want to use? And we'll get into that because there's a few different ways to do it, and depending on the way you do it, you just want to prescribe the way to do it. So we'll cover that in the session, and we also have a summary slide that has the prescription, the prescribed method according to all of these, so you know. Finally, how do you then manage the version control and then publishing the document once you're ready to publish it, and understanding that if you need to revert changes and things like that, we'll go over those. And finally, this is more the public service announcement, is don't forget backups. Now that if you're starting to put documents inside of Office 365, they no longer are residing on your file server at your office. Well, your file server is backed up, but is O365 backed up? So I'll just mention it really quick. The default Microsoft backup, if you have documents in O365, is only 14 days. So if you delete a document accidentally or intentionally, and and 15 days later you go to find it, it's going to be gone. So we do recommend having a third-party backup, and don't worry, MyTech Smart Business Suite subscribers and clients have that covered. So, but just it's always something I like to mention once we start talking about putting documents into O365. Okay. So that's the basic key areas we're going to cover today, and we're going to go into each one of these individually. And there's about 2 or 3 sections or common pieces of each one of these. So now let's get into the demonstration. I'll show you I'll walk you through each one of these steps to help you with the basics of collaborating in Office 365. Okay, so I'm going to go to Teams. And I'm going to start, when you talk about internal sharing, we'll start with chat. And what I mean by chat is that there's different sections of Teams. There's the chat section where you're maybe one-on-one or one-to-many. And then there's Teams, which has more of your organizational design. So we'll talk about how you can share files there as well. But we're going to start with chat. So if you're in the chat section, so for instance, Stephanie is the producer, as you can see, and I have a chat here with Stephanie. So I'm going to say, "Hey, Stephanie." I always call her SK to make it easy. Could you help me collaborate on this document? All right. So I'm going to send her a message. Now I didn't specify the document yet. I did that on purpose, but I'm just trying to get her attention to say, "Hey, would you be able to help me?" So in Teams, this is the first way to start doing it. Great. So I can say, give her a little thumbs up. Thank you, Stephanie. So what I'm going to show is I've actually saved on my desktop here. That's not what I meant to click. Sorry about that. On my desktop, I've saved a test PowerPoint file, a test Word document, and then a test Excel spreadsheet. So this is a common scenario, right, where you might be working at home, like a lot of us are right now, or most of us probably are, and you might have files on your desktop. So I'm going to use that as an illustration. I'm just going to take one of these. I'm going to take this Word document, and I'm going to pull it into the Teams chat with Stephanie. All right. So in Stephanie, I'm going to go to there's a Files tab here at the top. I'm just going to click on that. And I can actually click, here's a share button that you can click on. I'll say upload from my computer, and I'll hit desktop, and I'm just going to grab this Word document right here. Oh, the file's in use. Oh, that's right, because I have it open. An example of it wasn't ready for multi-user editing yet because I had it open. So I'll just use the Excel document as we speak. So notice I clicked on that. That's uploading this file. So now we have this test Excel document in there. So I'm going to go back to the chat, and I'm going to give you an illustration that once I shared that file, it also posted in the chat here in the chat section. So you could actually open this document here or in the file section. But we're gonna catch on that later. So first and foremost, that's one of the ways you can go to the Files tab, and you can just click Share, and you can upload a document. So again, we're just hitting on kind of getting the document into a place where you can share it. The other place when you're in a chat that you can share is, notice there's a little icon, attach icon down here at the bottom. So what I could have also done with Stephanie is I could have said, hey SK, please help me with this Word doc. And what I'm also going to do at the same time, I'm going to attach that Word document. It hopefully should be ready. It is, good. Notice it's actually uploading it right there, and then I click send. And so now I included the text. Like here, I did not include the text, and I uploaded the file separately, but it's still posted. Here, I actually attached the document to the chat via this paperclip icon down here. And notice as I click over to the file section, that test Word document is also now in the file section. So whether you upload it via the chat or to the file section, those documents will exist here in the chat. So that's if it's one-to-one. But notice I also have a chat down here that's one-to-many. So I actually have Gerald and Stephanie here. In fact, I've added myself as a guest here as well, but I've got multiple people in this chat. I could do the same thing. So for example, I could go into here in files, and I have not shared anything, but I'm going to click share here, upload from my computer, and I'm going to use this test PowerPoint file. So you get an example of me uploading that, and now it's uploading. So what this is basically doing as it's sharing this, and it needs to probably refresh. Notice that it is noting that I shared it here, and as I browse back, it's there. So I can also share files again one-to-one. So when I shared the file here just with Stephanie, what this does is it only allows Stephanie and I to be able to share and collaborate on this document. Whereas if I have a chat, and where I have multiple people in it. And by the way, if you want to add more people to the chat, you just can go over here and you can say add people, right? So if you have a chat going and you want to add people, you can actually choose to add people or not. So that's the way you can have more than one person in a chat. So I have that chat here, and now I added this file to that chat, and now I've only shared this document with Gerald and Stephanie, who are part of this chat group. Okay, so the three of us would be able to collaborate on this file. So that's a couple ways that you might be able to share a file, just starting with chat. Okay, so now let's move to the second section, and we're going to get to how to open these and then start multi-user editing these. But I want to start by just saying, how do you share the files if you're not familiar or comfortable with that? So I'm actually going to go to the marketing team channel because I don't believe I have any files shared in here. So Stephanie and I are part of the marketing team at MyTech, just as an example. So we have a general channel here. So let's say these files, instead of sharing them with the chat, and maybe there was more people on the marketing team that I've shared, I click on the files tab up here, and I don't believe there is anything in here. Yes, I have not yet shared any files. So I could do the same thing in the general channel. I could use the little paperclip icon down here, and I could attach documents, or I can go to the files section and attach documents as well. So I'll just upload one of those files. Just give you an example. I'm going to upload that test PowerPoint. Even though I already uploaded that into the chat with Stephanie and Gerald, I'm going to illustrate this now. Basically, it's the same way to upload that document into a Teams channel. And this is if you want anyone on this team to be able to collaborate, whoever the members of this team are. Okay, I'm going to go back to the post just to illustrate that. So this file has now been uploaded. Go back to the post file and notice it actually, I don't think it did. It doesn't always post in the channel. It's a little bit different than in Teams. However, I can actually go in here and say, please help me with the Word document. And as I mentioned earlier, I can attach here. And I'm going to do test Word document. And there we go. That's interesting that it actually just went ahead and opened that up. I was just trying to attach it. That's interesting. Upload from my computer. Test Word document, open. It's weird how that did that. I didn't mean to open it up. And then hit attach. Again, so now I've created a conversation around that. This is actually what's interesting about a team versus a chat. And I'll just notice one little quick difference. Notice in the team, you've got this little reply down here that I could reply to this conversation versus starting a new conversation. Whereas in chat, I'm going to go to the Stephanie and Gerald chat. I did the same thing where I uploaded the PowerPoint, but the only way I can only type a new message down here. I can't reply just to this. It's just a stream of consciousness. So that's a subtle difference between Teams channels and chat, if this is a way in which you want to share the document. Additionally, you'll notice that once I shared it via the chat, that document is now in the Teams files tab as well. Okay. All right. So now we've really hit on the second way, is that in a Teams channel, you can basically do the same function of adding a file via the chat and attach it to the chat, which then also posts it to the files, or you could just go directly to the files section and click upload, and we were able to upload the file as well. So I'm going to show you one other way. Again, all of these ways are fine. It's just understanding who you're sharing it with. Like this is sharing with everyone on the marketing team, or if I'm sharing it in a chat, I'm only sharing it with the people that I'm chatting with. If it's a one-to-one chat or a one-to-many chat. So finally, all of these things are connected to SharePoint. So I'm going to click on this little icon over here to open in SharePoint. So what it'll do, it's actually going to open up, because this team has a corresponding SharePoint site. And so I'm going to click open in SharePoint, and you're going to have it. You're going to open up a browser here, and it's actually going to show you the exact same files that you see that we just saw. So we're in the marketing team group, and notice we're in the general channel, and those two documents are actually here in SharePoint. Again, notice that the exact same documents that we had here as are in the browser, which leads me to the final way that I like to show you how to share a document, which is to, I can actually upload a document here. So I'm going to upload a file, and I'm going to upload that Excel document that we talked about earlier. And so now I'm going to I uploaded the Excel file right into SharePoint. So now I'll show you a little trick, just as an example, now we have all three of these documents. I'm going to browse back to the same Teams channel that we were just in, which is the marketing team general channel, and you'll see that the Excel document, once I refresh, I'm just going to click away, click it again to refresh it. The Excel document is also now here. So this is an exact, it's not a copy of the files when you see them in Teams versus SharePoint. The files actually reside in SharePoint when you share them in a team. The files reside in SharePoint, and it's just a link to the same Teams channel. So these documents are just links, or you might think of them as shortcuts to the actual SharePoint channel. Okay, so now that we've talked about, you can upload files via chat, you can upload files via Teams channel, and you can upload files directly into SharePoint. And those are the three ways in which you can start the sharing process inside of Office 365. Now we're going to talk about, okay, there's three different ways that you can actually open these documents. So Stephanie, I'm going to open up this test Word document. Now notice when you hover over the document, you get these little breadcrumbs, or the ellipses over here on the side. You'll notice those breadcrumbs are in a lot of places in Office 365. So when you hover over the document, I'm going to click on that, and it gives me the opportunity to say open. How do I want to open it? You can open this document in three different ways. You can open it in Word Online in the browser. You can open up in the Word application that resides on your desktop, or I could open it right in Teams and edit inside of Teams. All three of these options are feasible. All three of these options are available for multi-user editing. And if Stephanie were to open them in Word Online and I were to open it in Word on my desktop, we're still editing and accessing the exact same document. So it's really important to understand that there's three ways to open it. Now, by default, if I just click on this, it's going to open it up right in Teams.
Hey, Nate.
Yes.
Can you add me to that channel, or we can edit another document? I'm not part of the channel.
I thought, I think you're actually part of that channel, but I think that's one of the problems with your, oh, no, you're not. Let me do that. So that's a great example. I'll add Stephanie to that. I should have added Stephanie to that. Sorry, Stephanie, I assumed you were part of the marketing channel. I must not have added you. So notice I'm adding Stephanie real quick as a channel. We'll get to that by basically being able to, I clicked on Manage Team. When I got to Manage Team, I just clicked on Add Member over here, and then I was to add Stephanie. Now, I can do that because I'm an owner of that team. So that's how that was able to happen. So thank you, Stephanie. So I'm going to again open up, I'm just going to click on this Word document right here. It's going to open it up in Teams. But if I wanted to open it up separately, I could do it over here. So I'm opening up in Teams. As it populates, one of the other things that you'll notice, there's the breadcrumbs over here. There's also breadcrumbs here. Notice more options, more options. So if you click all the way up here, let's say I open it up here in Teams, but I wanted to open it up differently. Notice Stephanie, as I hover this, Stephanie is also in this file, and I can see that she's in it. I also have a little indicator up here that Stephanie is in this file as well, and as you can see her navigating that in real time. So the other thing I can do, if I click up here, I can say open up in browser as well versus download. So I'm going to open up in browser really quick. So I can actually see this exact same document, and notice it also gives me a little bit different view because it's not inside of the Teams window, but I still see that Stephanie is editing here, and I still see she's working down here. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm just going to add some information. I'm going to say I'm editing this document here. All right, so this is an example of, yeah, I should probably put my notes on that. So this is an example where we're multi-user editing, but the challenge is, if you noticed, so Stephanie, go ahead and type. I want to bring everyone's attention right up here. Notice it says saved. So Stephanie, go ahead and start typing something, and you'll notice that that'll change really quick. Once she's done, it'll say saving. And then it'll eventually come back to save. So neither of us are actually hitting save, which is one of the challenges of using this method of editing, which is the real-time live editing. The fact that because we're a member of the team, it creates multiple it's automatically saving this information. And actually, it didn't show that it was doing that in that moment. There it is. You see how it's now saving? And it'll flip back to saved here in a moment. Now it's saved. It's automatically saving that information, which is great on one hand, but it's also a problem on the other hand, because what if someone makes an edit that you didn't want? So that's the last part that we're going to talk about, is versioning, but we still have a couple other areas to talk about relative to the different types of editing. So what Stephanie and I just showed you is, by default, if you've shared it in a channel like we did, so in Teams, I'm actually going to close the document here, so I'm not editing it in Teams and the browser. Just click close, and it'll bring you back to this screen. Once you share a document in Teams, anyone who has access to this marketing team has access to edit these documents. All right. So when we're looking at these files, by default, when you open these documents, it's in a multi-user auto save mode. It's always saving. So a couple things you need to be aware of is that, well, maybe you want feedback on a document, but you don't want them to whoever you're collaborating with to necessarily edit the document in real time. So I'm just going to delete that section. But so there's a couple different ways to do it that really enable multi-user collaboration really well. So for instance, I'm going to highlight this area, and I'm going to add a comment. New comment. Idea for this section. Maybe, we should make it bold, right? So this might be something that I send that. Now, one of the things that's noted is that when I make those comments, it gives me an opportunity to highlight that, to see those comments. So I can turn my view off, or I can just click on it here and open it back up. So either up here or down here, you can open up those comments. The other thing that's nice, if you're doing multi-user editing, when you do comments, is that Stephanie could come over here, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, and make a comment, reply to this comment. And so we could be collaborating around the concept or the idea or the suggestion in the comment section. And then as Stephanie replies, we can actually resolve it and say, yep, we figured out what we want. So it doesn't just sit around. I could edit, or I could delete the thread if I've actually finished it up. So that's one of the ways that I really like editing and using the comments section. Stephanie, I don't know if you're able to see that, if you're able to edit over there. Maybe it's just not refreshing it. There it goes. So Stephanie got it. She replied. So then what I can actually do is I can say, hey, this has been resolved. So now it basically kind of locks it because we talked about it, we collaborated on it, and I've resolved it because I'm just going to say, hey, I made that bold. So that's one way of doing editing, where you can make suggestions, you can collaborate on ideas and have conversation going back and forth about a specific section without actually editing the document in real time. As far as changing the actual content of the document. The other one is probably what most people are familiar with, is being able to go over here and track changes. So I can turn on track changes for everyone here. So now what I can start saying is, well, I don't really like this section, so I'm going to delete that, except instead of deleting, it's going to cross through. Then I'm going to say, of course we can edit, we can make changes. So this is a way in which you can track changes, and it does give you kind of a note of what it does, which is kind of nice when you hover over that. It says who did it, and the suggestion changes. That's something you're probably familiar with in Word when you send people back and forth. And notice it turns this to reviewing up here, which is great. And then you can just go to these changes, and of course you can, if you're not familiar with this section, you could go here and say, well, I want to accept that change, or reject that change, or revert that change. So what I'm really challenging you here is to look into, understand the different editing ways to edit documents. And when you're choosing to collaborate a document with someone on a document, is to prescribe the way in which you'd like to give them, you would want them to give you feedback, right? Do you want to just say, hey, can you just go in here and use the comments feature and add comments on your thoughts, as opposed to editing it? Or you know what, if you want to go ahead and make changes, we're going to turn on track changes, and that's the way we're going to do it. So they can actually go in and we can track the changes. Otherwise, by default, if you just say, I want to collaborate with you, everyone can edit, whomever you're sharing that document with by default can edit it in real time and make changes in real time. Okay, so that is kind of goes into that section as far as you can open up in the browser, in Teams, or in the application. Once you have those documents open, doesn't matter the way in which you open them, you can then also choose to edit in real time, or use track changes, or use comments. You can use all of the above, but of course, I recommend that if you're choosing to collaborate, be prescriptive about how you'd like to receive that feedback from the people with whom you're collaborating. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. Notice it's already saved. I'm going to close this document. So now let's talk about, well, what if I made a mistake and I didn't share that document, and I wasn't prescriptive about the way I wanted people to edit that document with me, and I want to revert to a previous version, or I want to possibly go back because a change was made that I didn't want. All right, so the way to do that, as you might imagine, is if you hover over this Word document again, right? Now notice what shows up. The breadcrumbs or the ellipses over here show up once you hover over it. If you're not hovering over it, it doesn't show up. But if you're hovering over it, click on the little breadcrumbs, and it pops up some options. And if you look down here, there's this option called version history. So now this is available inside of SharePoint. I believe it's also available inside of Teams. I'm going to click here and just double check that. Under more, no, it's not. So the version history is not available. I wasn't sure, inside of Teams. So it's interesting. While this is a shortcut to the SharePoint, it's the same document. It is the exact same document. When you click on the breadcrumbs here, you don't get the version history option when you're inside of Teams. All right, so if you want to check version history, one of the things you can quickly and easily do is click the little link up here that says open in SharePoint, and that will open up this, this view. And now when you go hover over the document and click on the ellipse, you'll have the option of coming down here for version history. So notice we have multiple iterations of the document here, and when I click on the little drop down, notice when I hover over the different time date stamps, I can hover over it. There's a little drop down. When I click on that drop down, I can either restore or delete this version. And the view is actually a little bit of a misnomer. It's viewing the details of the document. For example, I'll show you. It's not actually opening up the document. It's viewing the history of the document. So that's a little bit of a kind of a misnomer that people I wish it didn't. Again, click on version history. I wish it. View seems weird to say here, but actually what it is, if you want to view the document, you actually need to click on the link of the document itself. And it's saying, hey, I'm trying to open up Word. It's actually going to open up, if you click on the link, it's going to open up this version in Word so that you can see where that version was and where it was saved. All right, so I'm going to close that back. And so if I wanted to, so this is the current version. So in the current version, all I can do is restore. I can't delete because it's the current version. But any past version, I could view, restore, or delete. So if I wanted to restore this one, I could. And so that way you get an idea of how you can very quickly and easily view the document, the version that you're talking about, and you could easily then delete it if you don't want to keep it around, or restore it if you want to. And that applies to any of the versions that are happening here. The only one that you can't delete is the most current one, because that's the most current iteration and version of the file. Okay, so we are right at the time. So I want to go back and hit a quick summary here. So what we talked about is, first of all, if you're going to collaborate on documents, there are multiple ways in which you can share the documents. You got to get them into a place where you can collaborate from a multi-user perspective, either in the chat, as we mentioned, in the team, in a channel, or in SharePoint. Secondly, there's 3 different ways in which you can open the documents for editing. So understand that in Teams, the browser, or in the respective application like Word or Excel. It doesn't matter which application, which way you open the document as far as multi-user editing. There are some nuances of the features that are available. There's slightly different feature sets, and the menus might be a little bit different depending on if you're opening up in Teams or the browser or the application. So just be aware of that. And then once you have the document open, I encourage you to prescribe the method in which you want people to help you edit and collaborate. Do you want to do real time? Do you want to use comments or track changes? And finally, version control, how you can access the version control in SharePoint. And then once you're ready to publish the document, turn that document into a PDF or like a document template if you don't want that document edited and you want to publish it as a kind of a core document. And finally, as another note, Microsoft default is only 14 days for backup on O365. And so if you deleted a document or 15 days ago and you forgot it, it's going to be gone. I know that any MyTech clients that are on the Smart Business Suite, the O365 backup is covered. You're all good as a third-party backup. So recommended next steps before we go to the Q&A is I really recommend understanding the purpose of the document collaboration. Because depending on whom you're collaborating with, and it might determine whether you use chat or the Teams or SharePoint method. Again, and understand which one. So understand your purpose so you can choose which one fits you best. And then what I'd recommend is, you've taken some notes here today, is try to take some baby steps in the next 24 to 48 hours. We have some Q&A tomorrow, and again, as I recommend, there's sessions next week. The session on Tuesday is kind of more of an advanced session of what we just covered today, and the session on Thursday is more of a personal use and how to optimize your personal interaction with these working remotely. So I look forward to that. So join us for those sessions. Take some baby steps. I look forward to hearing your questions in the coming days. So thank you very much for attending today. And for those of you who only allocated 30 minutes, thank you for your time. If you want to stick around, we'll answer some questions and we'll dig in a little deeper. So Stephanie,